G'day, community, and welcome to the Jock Reynolds Supercoach podcast. I'm Lek Dog, and we're brought to you today by a couple of very special sponsors. The first one is Supercoach Champion, www.supercoachchampion.com. They provide Supercoach rings for your Supercoach leagues. They're very nicely designed rings. They've sent us a couple to have a look at, and so go check them out on Facebook as well, Supercoach Championship rings. If you want to up the stakes of your favourite league a little bit further. I think they're very close to running out of stock, so jump in now. You might be able to get one of the last remaining championship rings for 2020. We're also, I'd also like to give a shout out to my main man Terry over at Blue Abroad. You can check out his YouTube channel. Just look up Blue Abroad if you want to see some cool Carlton content, both video and audio and everything. So you can check those out. But here we are. Oh, and thank you to Telebeats as well. We're full of people to thank today for the lovely music you've either heard or are about to hear. I'm not sure. I haven't edited the podcast yet. Joining me today to talk about all things Supercoach as we approach the start of round 2. It's been a long time since we've been able to say that. First of all is Damo. Damo, you beautiful bastard over in WA. How are you?
I'm good, Lek. I'm ready for the season to begin again. I really want round 2 to get underway, and hopefully all my Supercoach mistakes aren't actually mistakes after all.
We can only hope, but hey, mine are probably mistakes. So if you did the opposite to me, you'll be fine. And joining us for the first time making his podcast debut is Clarky, Quantum Clarky himself. How are you, you wonderful man?
Oh, I'm looking at my team now, and I was better off not knowing. I'm very excited though to really get back to it. It's been a long time.
We will go through our teams, but I figure maybe we can try and run through some news, some Supercoach relevant news. Guess what? We still don't have a lot of rookies, boys. Damo, the only name that I've really heard is Isaac Rankin from Gold Coast. He's the only one I've heard as like a possible addition to our Supercoach teams.
Well, yeah, no one's really talking about anyone else that might come in. We've heard the murmurings that Darcy Cameron might come in because Mason Cox is struggling with knee soreness, and Ben Reid is one sneeze away from tearing his calf again. And then we've also got Will Gold, who's constantly on the fringe at Sydney, it seems. And then we've also got Lockie Scholl, who was singled out by Brodie Smith at Adelaide.
Yeah, Lockie Scholl's, I was hopeful for him, but the more I read about that through that article, the less likely I felt that it was going to be him that came to that side. Sounds like Shane McAdam pushing for a spot, but that doesn't fill me with confidence. It might be just mid-price madness with these 5 trades we've got, Damo. Even Carlton, Tom Williamson, he's not close to it. He's fit, but he's not close to it. So all these guys I was hoping to see, I'm slightly worried about. Speaking of mid-prices, who are we looking to bring in? Clark, I'm going to throw straight to you on the Jack Viney discussion. We talked about it last week. I've thought about it a lot more this week. Is Jack Viney in your team? Is he going to come into your team?
I started Viney, so I got that beautiful 186 score from round 1, and it validated every single doubt that I had. I think he's, for as cliche as it sounds, he's got a lot to play for this season, bumping down from co-captain, but he still wants to show that he's a leader, and he just loves being around the ball. He's a good tackler. I think he's someone who probably isn't going to get 180s every other week, but I think we could probably see him pump up to 100 plus average. So whether or not that means he's a keeper, if you started him, you're probably very happy to keep him for a little bit longer.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Bryce Mitchell, we talked about this last week. If he tons up twice in the next 2 rounds, he'll jump up to about 540k. Anything more as a bonus. Anything less, well, it hurts a little bit. So Damo, if the planets align and he does get to 540k, let's say he peaks at 550k for the sake of discussion, is he worth trading in to get him to 550k, then probably to move him out? Is it worth the 2 trades?
In this shortened season, I don't think trades are the sort of commodity that you need to keep, just because I think it was worked out by someone on Twitter. I forget their name, but thank you for working this out. You can use every trade up until the finals and then have 3 trades during the Supercoach finals. I know some people will want more trades during the finals just because obviously it's going to be harder to get your team to a point where it's wholly reliable with premiums, but it just means that there's more opportunities for you to trade someone in, benefit from their cash rise, and then trade them out, even if it's only a short stint. And with Jack Viney, he only needs to go up to 550 or 60k to be worth his time in your team. And he's also got Carlton and Essendon first up in his first 2 weeks, meaning there is every chance that he could come out with another 120, 130 sort of scores, which would make his price jump even higher, because obviously the projections that Bryce Mitchell did was sort of estimating a 100 average over the first 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think it's a tall order for him. Like, I know he's obviously not been healthy previously. There's always been issues, blah, blah, blah. He only averages 76 against the Blues, and he only averages 71 against Essendon. So my concern would be, can he turn up consistently? Because you want him to turn up. It's a little bit of points chasing and a little bit of cash chasing going after him just because he scored 180. Obviously, he had a good preseason. But the cash it's going to generate, if you went sideways to him from a McPherson or someone in the 400s, or you went down to him and even made cash from a Primo, he makes that cash back pretty quickly. Even if he doesn't turn up, like, he's still going to make some cash back. So with trades being not that much of a commodity, I don't hate bringing him in, but my preference is always going to be to try and find rookies if we have them available. So let's talk about another guy in a similar boat. Clarkey, Jeremy Howe, is he in your team? Is he going to be in your team? $431,000, 156 in round 1, and is set to skyrocket in price. In fact, we can throw Sam Doherty in this conversation, 117 in round 1, similar price.
I started Doherty. I think that was a no-brainer. Just, past, present, and future king of the defensive line. He's going to do well. Howe is definitely someone I've looked at, particularly when my team specifically has a very light back line as far as proven primo or even mid prices. So it pretty much jumps from, I've got Robertson at 260, and then my next highest is Doherty at 436. So someone in the middle there who has the potential to meet that scoring, getting rid of possibly a Starcevic, who maybe now is more on a fringe than he was before, to bring in someone like Howe, who has a set position, is going to get time, and has the potential to score. I think it's probably a move that I'm going to make, particularly when I'm looking at Zerk Thatcher and Starcevic, and even Brander. I think Noble might hold his position, who's someone else that I've got, but I think Howe is probably someone who could just make me feel a little bit more comfortable.
And I'm going to dump our friend of the podcast, Paige Cardona, in this, because she has stated to me that Jack Madgen is 100% in the plans for Collingwood, which will free up Howe. And I think, look, he's not going to score 156, but I think he's going to score reasonably well. And I don't think there's any danger in bringing him in, as you said, Clarkey, in a particularly weak part of the ground. Damo, any hesitance in getting a player like Jeremy Howe into your backline?
No hesitance from me. Just as a purely option, as a player that's going to average 90 plus is pretty much the best that you can hope for, and I think he could quite easily stick around that 95 average. He obviously won't score 150s every week, but the 94s, 95s, even a 96 average is very achievable for him, especially in this shortened season with shortened games, because intercept marking and key players will be rewarded on the Supercoach scoring sheet.
Yeah, and I think everything you've said is correct, and I think we should focus more on these mid-price / cheaper players in these discussions, because I don't think anyone is sideways trading. Like, can you guys think of a circumstance where you might sideways trade, say, Patrick Dangerfield to another full primo price, or is pretty much every instance going to be about cash generation and downgrading a primo, like a Dunkley maybe, into a cheaper guy? Is there any instance where we need to talk about full price primos in your eyes, Clarkey?
I think a lot of people are probably just going on that uncertainty where they want the security, and I understand that, but are you really costing yourself by, say, going down? I've seen, the big one that I've seen a lot of people talking about is going down from Gorn to somebody else, where it's, you've got this person who's gonna guarantee you points instead of, even though you're looking for that cash generation, you're probably better off trying to sideways a rookie, or just find that money elsewhere than downgrading a, say, full primo or even close to full primo, who's probably going to hold like a Dangerfield specifically, or even a Dunkley. They're still going to score pretty well. The cash generation is hard, but you're still at the end of the day looking for those points. And I think, that's something that you have to take in account when you're making those trades, is don't shoot yourself in the foot just to save your arm. Because you're still going to end up sad.
Yeah, in the top 10 traded out players so far, we've had 3,000 coaches trade out Bontempelli, and half of that trade out Max Gorn. So are you saying to those people, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, pretty much, specifically as well with Max Gorn. I might be a little bit biased as the Melbourne supporter, but I think he's just someone who, people were concerned pre-season about his injuries, as well as his return there. But I think you can't deny that, money's great, but you can't deny that he's not going to go 93 every game for the rest of the season. People are going, they look at the one score, they get the tunnel vision, and then they go, well, I can use my money better elsewhere. And if that works for your strategy, that's fine. But at the end of the day, you're probably still going to try and bring him back in, which is going to hurt you if he does. Like Damo was saying, they've got Carlton and Essendon, who probably pretty good for Gorn as a tap ruckman to go up against them and score big.
Yeah, and Damo, in terms of trading for guys who are mid-priced and scored well in round one, Jeremy Howe, we talked about this last week. I think it's easier to be a top 10 defender or forward option than it is to be a top 2 ruckman and a top 10 midfielder. I'm pretty content with holding my quality midfielders and holding my quality ruckman and trying to work around the edges, because they're going to generate the points. They're going to be good all year, whereas the forward line and back line can be very volatile in how they score. I carry on this thought, Damo, because we didn't get to talk about him really last week because Patch got very angry, but Chad Wingard is one of the most traded in players this year. He scored 131 in round one, and he is forward midfield eligible at 412k. Is he someone that you'd be considering?
I've constantly been considering him instead of Jack Viney, purely just for the structure of my team sake, and even though he's not someone who typically scores big every round, he's someone who has that ceiling just because of his ability to play through the midfield and up forward really effectively. But I guess people have to also decide what they saw, because don't abandon your plans that you had at the beginning of the season just because it's a shortened season. You should still technically stick to that plan, and just remember the players you wanted on your team that you couldn't afford at the beginning, just because, players who score well will still score well. It's just the mid-prices will be rewarded for doing those little things more, because in this shorter game format, obviously there's more points to go around in less time.
Yeah, I think Jeremy Howe at 430k and Sam Doherty at 430k, we could consider them fallen primos. In defense, I reckon about 450k up, you're close to a primo, right? So these guys are underpriced for various reasons. They're just below 450k. They're fallen primos who have a history of being able to score. A guy like Chad Wingard in the forward line at 400k, the only appeal he has to be is that forwards always suck. But is he going to be a top 8 forward? I don't think so. And that's why when I look and I see Jai Simpkin as another guy who's been traded in a lot by coaches this round or pre-round 2 at 380k, I think that's a mistake as well. Although I prefer that to Chad Wingard because he's 30k cheaper. So, David, do you think the cheaper the player is, the less the risk is in making those moves?
The best advice I can give people is don't be scared of a scary forward line. Don't be scared to fill your forward line with the likes of Ben Long, Brett Bewley, Jai Simpkin, these players that have scored well in round one and are due to make massive price jumps later on just because they scored higher than their price. So players like Jai Simpkin, obviously because he's cheaper, will make more money off his 133 that he scored than Chad Wingard will, who scored 131, because obviously Chad Wingard is more expensive.
Yeah, Clarkey, Damo just mentioned Ben Long, who played very well, playing in a sort of rebounding defensive role in round one. We touched on him last week, but is he someone in your plans, or Brett Bewley, or someone in that 250 to 280k mark?
So I haven't. I have looked at Bewley. Bewley's been someone who's very attractive on my list, but I would like to just step back quickly to Jai Simpkin. And I hate to put him on blast because he's not here, and I love the man. But Patch did mock me pre-season for suggesting that Jai Simpkin was a good selection. I know that yes, everything that's happened and the rounds have been delayed and things like that, but 131 for 383. I think just talking about the comparison between like say someone like him or Wingard for 383, and he is looking like he's probably he was set to have a little bit more midfield time. Guys like him and Bewley and Long is someone who I'm going to look into. They're definitely people who are more attractive to me, but I think my issues still mostly come from the back line. Brayshaw, I think, is still someone who people could, you wouldn't be wrong, like Damo said last week, you wouldn't be wrong to trade him out, but keeping him doesn't necessarily present a huge risk because he's still going to be there. But you look at guys like Sturt is somebody who is still on my list there. The Max Kings, the Kavaras, the Taylors, the Rankings, and all those guys. So maybe moving them up to Bewleys or Longs is the safer and better, efficient or more efficient selection.
Let's talk about that, Damo, because Sam Sturt, obviously injury cloud, but there are some players who might be coming back, particularly at Fremantle. Stephen Hill, a chance to play round two, and Hayden Young might be another one that we could look at. Damo, what's the news on them, and have we got any hope of having them come back from that side to bolster the defence?
I can sort of cover off on both of the WA teams. I was listening to a podcast the other day that Ryan Daniels was on. Great Channel 7 reporter, very prominent in the WA media. Shout out to him. He was basically saying Jared Brander will be given every opportunity to lock down a role in that West Coast team because West Coast basically need him to show something this season or he's effectively out the door. Bailey Williams, who was a popular pick in the preseason, will be given a chance at some point, but maybe later on in the season. And then he was talking about Stephen Hill, more likely for round 3 than round 2, because they're still working with match fitness and strength and conditioning on him. But Hayden Young will definitely feature in one of the hub games, as will Caleb Sarong and Toby Watson. And then you've got the likes of Jesse Hogan, who is firming for round 2, but obviously he's coming from a long way back as well.
There's still question marks, and round 2 might not be the answer. My theory is we're going to get a lot of players coming back in like round 3, which is a concern. Let's throw it out the window, guys. I'll ask you some questions of primo players that you'd be looking to bring in, because we've talked about mid prices and rookies. I don't think the focus should be on primos. But Clarkey, a guy like Zach Williams, he's going to come back in round 2 for GWS. He's 550k, dominated last year. Is that a player that you might, let's say you by some miracle you're able to trade him in to bolster your defense, or even sacrifice a primo elsewhere because there's such a lack of rookie options? Is Zach Williams someone you might look at?
Zach Williams is somebody who last year I was in love with him because he did so much for my team. Really, really helped me that year. But I think around that price bracket, so I mean, if you're looking at bringing in a primo in the defense with a shortened season, limited game time, I think people might be overlooking like a Shannon Hearn rather than a Zach Williams. Who Shannon Hearn, he historically just decreases over the season. Whether that be because of age or what have you, or whether it's stamina. I think with shortened game time, shortened season, he's somebody who could probably very consistently perform at a high level. So I would say, just trying to bring up the price here just to see if I'm not wasting my time. So he's 562, currently listed at 152 in round one. If you're going to go to a Zach Williams, why not consider a Shannon Hearn? I think that's kind of probably someone more I'd be looking at who's probably maybe primed to go higher up because of that limited game time, because I'll have more in the tank to last you.
Yeah, and so I don't mind that idea of looking at a guy like a Hearn 560k, because Damo, let's say worst case scenario, all of our defensive rookies, we've barely got any to choose from. Are you going to be willing to sacrifice a premium midfielder to bring in a premium defender? Is that logic sound, or you just try and ride it out with the bare bones in the back line, maybe have a 0 on the bench, even knowing you've got a 0 going into round 2 to maintain that structure in the midfield? What's the way to go in a worst case scenario, particularly in defence?
I'd be very surprised if at some point during this season you don't have a donut on your field at some point, just because of the way the season's going, and most teams are saying if you're fit, you're going to play. But obviously that was back when they were considering hubs and all that sort of stuff, like hubs that they send 6 teams to and all that sort of stuff. So who knows if that's still the plan for clubs? But there are also, but those same clubs are also ones that are going to be really heavily hit by this list reduction. So you'll see teams trying to see who's worth keeping on their list, and that'll mean lots of change, lots of rookies, etc., just to see who's worth keeping. So back to your question, like, about who do you sacrifice if that happens. I don't think you sacrifice anyone. I think you ride your team in the structure you have the best you can and try and get the most points on the field, even if it means putting someone on field who's literally going to score you 25 points just so you don't have a donut. Then you got to ride that out. Don't go chasing players who will make a score. Keep your structure the best you can. You'd have to have planned very well to not have a donut on your field at one point during this season.
Yeah, but I guess that's a good point. We don't have to worry about buys this season, which is good. So you can pretty much trade in anyone you want and not worry about them guaranteeing to be missing around later on. So that's one benefit. It's totally impossible for us to tell everyone what to do without A, seeing the teams initially, and B, knowing what their circumstances are. But fundamentally, I don't mind trading around the edges. I'm not trading one of my core structure like a Gorn or a Dangerfield. I was looking at spitball this one with me, guys. I was thinking about trading Clayton Oliver to Jack Viney. I don't think I'm going to, but that was my thought process earlier in the week. Clucky, do you think that's a good idea?
Absolutely not. I love Jack Viney. I'm glad that I picked him. It's kind of more of a mid-price that paid off. I think the scary thing about Viney is that he has in the past been someone that they've called to be a lockdown player, which means that he can potentially, depending on however they decide to play the match, he could be someone who just moves away from the ball even though he loves being there. I think Clayton Oliver he's someone that they want the ball in his hands. You can't deny that. You watch the way Melbourne play, they want to give it to Oliver so that he can get it out to guys like Viney or to guys like even Petrarca. Those guys out in the fringe, Tomlinson, Langdon, all those guys who can now run it for them.
And that answer, boys, is why I think you've got to hold on to your gun primos that you've selected and researched in the preseason, because you don't have all those reasons and justifications for Clayton Oliver's role, because you know Clayton Oliver's role. It's be Clayton Oliver. Jack Viney is going to have to be flexible and do team stuff, and we don't know necessarily what his role is going to be every single week. So that answer alone says to me, you've got to back in what you know. And that means backing in your primos. There are some underpriced guys who we do know what their role's going to be. We do know that they're going to be good selections. Like a Sam Doherty, he's in a lot of teams. Devon Smith, he's in a lot of teams. And rightfully so, because they are underpriced, but we do know what their role's going to be. You don't have to try and justify selecting those guys. So if you're out there, community, and you're thinking, I'm going to trade Max Gawn to Sam Naismith because Sam Naismith is going to be the number one ruckman and he might average 90 and blah, blah, blah. You don't have to do that mental arithmetic with Max Gawn because it's Max Gawn and you just keep Max Gawn. And that's kind of where I'm at, Dame. I'm kind of just at I'll wait till the teams are named, I'll get in as many rookies as I can, and I'm just going to hold the guys that I backed in.
Yeah, like you said, tinker around the edges, don't mess with your main structure just because you know what the primos are going to play like, basically. You know Patrick Dangerfield is going to be bursting through the centre with some stints forward. You know that Nat Fyfe is going to run through the centre and spend time forward. You know that Lachie Neale is going to play right in the guts for Brisbane. You know that Jack McRae is going to play right in the guts for the Western Bulldogs. You know where all these players are going to play that you've picked. It's the mid prices or the slightly higher priced rookies that are the ones that might have to change their role just to fit the team dynamic. So people picking someone like a Jacob Townsend at 222k, fine, he scored 99 and he's going to have a nice price rise, but he's not going to score 4 goals against Fremantle every week because he's not playing Fremantle every week. Like Ben Long scored 118 at 280k, I think it is. That's fine, but people, if you talk to people who watched that game, they didn't actually think he was that prominent. So who knows if he's going to do that, whatever he did in that game again to score those points. Tinker with the edges of your team, not with the main structure.
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. I think you can trade out the guys that you thought might break out, like the guys you took risks on. I think you can take risks on again with the 5 trades in round 1. Assuming they're not all required for rookies. I don't think we're going to be so lucky to have 5 new rookies to pick from. But I think if you took a risk on a guy at the start of the year, you can take a risk on getting rid of him now. But I don't think you can risk getting rid of one of the guys that you backed in to be a gun. And you know, Patrick Dangerfield scored 83 in round 1 and people want to get rid of him. And guess what? He's playing at GMHBA Stadium for 800 years now and he's going to score 130 every game. So I don't think we need to overreact to these. I've got some questions, Clarkey. Or maybe we'll just go a yay or nay on some of these guys. Just looking at some of the most traded in players so far. I'll talk about guys we haven't talked on. John Noble, yay or nay, 74, 200k in round 1.
Yep, already got him. I'm probably gonna stick with him if he's named.
Damo, Isaac Heaney, 152, 510k.
Nay.
Sam Jacobs, one of the most popular traded in players, 134 in round 1. Clarkey.
It depends on who you are switching him with. If you're getting rid of Gawn or a Grundy, if that's your current setup, then a nay. If you're jumping off, say, maybe a Naismith or even a Nick Nat, I would probably say yay.
Yep. I don't mind that. Nick Nat playing away from home for the next few weeks.
Yeah, I have Nick Nat, and that is a potential problem.
Damo, Ben Cunnington is people are liking him after his 185 in round 1.
Nay.
And this is the last yay or nay for this one. Hugh Greenwood is a popular pick, playing all the next 4 games on the Gold Coast, I believe, or in Queensland. 116 points in round 1, Clarkey.
Oh, I'd probably stay with a nay. I'd probably like to see a little bit more from him, and just from the Gold Coast team in general.
And Damo, these are the most traded out players. Just want a hold or trade. Dylan Roberton.
Trade.
Ben Cavara is one of the most traded players.
Trade.
Definitely trade.
Andrew Brayshaw.
Case by case basis.
Marcus
Trade.
Bontempelli.
Hold.
And Darcy McPherson.
Trade.
I'm trading him. And then Josh Dunkley and Max Gawn are 9th and 10th in the most traded out players.
Trade and hold.
Trade Josh Dunkley. Speak to me about the idea of trading Josh Dunkley, Damo.
I was firmly in the camp of he was a must-have preseason, but that was back when it was going to be the war of attrition in longer games, longer season with the buys, etc., etc., because he's got more time to warm into it. This season, don't, I can't see him pumping out those massive scores again. I feel like if you get rid of him now, and I know this is I'm breaking a Supercoach law here. If you trade him now, I guarantee you can get him cheaper later.
Fair enough. Do you agree, Clarky?
Yeah, I think your money is probably better spent. I think there's a little bit more value around where Dunkley's sitting. Particularly, yeah, if your midfield is having trouble and that's the option, absolutely don't hesitate.
I'm a hold man because he was ranked 5th overall last year, and guess what? He was pretty shit in round 1 from memory then too, or round 2. So I'm a hold, but hey, it's a democracy, and you're allowed to both say the wrong opinions if you would like to.
I'm firmly digging in. 620 is 623 currently. You could go to Dangerfield for 2k if you don't have Dangerfield.
It's true. You could go down to Steven Gnigliog and gain about 100k.
Yeah, absolutely. These guys who have set roles will probably be consistent. Tom Mitchell is another one worth considering. He's only had more time to heal that leg. Even yet. Patrick Cripps, 635. Josh Kelly, 637. All these people are around the same price as Josh Dunkley, who are probably going to continue getting tons if you don't already have them.
Fair enough. Yeah, they are better. They are all better than Josh Dunkley. Fair enough. He was 5th overall last year, though. We know that.
Oh, absolutely. Look, I don't condone it just for the sake of it. Certainly, I agree with Damo, and I agree with you where you should stick to what your core strategy is, and you should really be looking at where to move those people. It's the same people who are moving Max Gorn because he scored a 93 or because they're concerned. It's why are you trading out somebody who is going to be good. One round does not make the Supercoach player. So, let's keep a hold of him if you can. But if you want to spend another 2k, you've got 5 trades and you've used 3 of them to trade out your troublesome rookies that you mispicked, then absolutely, if that's how you want to fly, I support that, but don't do it just because you can.
Yeah, that's a good point. You don't actually have to use all 5 trades. That is a good point. You don't have to. You can use them later on, just not all at once.
And just for clarification, Lek, can you go through how the price rises work again?
I can do my best. Right. A player's price will change after they have played their second game. They're still rolling with a 3-round average, which is how the break-evens are created in Supercoach. It's your last 3 scores versus your price, effectively, and there's maths, and that's how you increase or decrease in price. This season, that happens after you've played your second game because they've effectively applied a score to you based on your price, your starting price. So that also means whatever you scored in round 1, Jeremy Howe, for instance, if he had scored 156 in round 1 last year, he would have only benefited from that being in his rolling average for 1 round. He would have only seen 1 price rise out of that. But because of the new setup, that actually stays in his rolling average for 2 games, meaning his cash generation is increased for 2 weeks rather than 1. So that's just a little difference. After the second game is played, the price changes go as normal effect, basically things go back to normal. But that's why it's actually a reasonable idea to capitalize on these guys who have scored well in round 1, because you're getting their score for 2 rounds rather than 1, which would have been the case in previous years. And it's the same way for bad scores. Previously, that would have only doesn't really affect their price if they play badly in round 1, because it's only in there for 1 game. But in this year, 2020, it does sit in that rolling average for 2 weeks. So that's why we're spending so much time talking about what players did in round 1, because it does have double the effect it's previously had in Supercoach. So it is a big deal, even though it's only a very small sample size. So hopefully that answered your question, Damo. I tried to be as eloquent, as clear as I can be, but it was also maths, and I'm also not maths man.
Yeah, I think how you explained it is pretty spot on, and it's kind of it. If you look at the people who are bringing in these guys who were lower priced but scored really well in round one, because they will reap the benefit in a price rise. The Jack Vineys, the Townsends, those kinds of guys. The inverse is also the same for the premiums who scored well. Like, they're still going to go up. They now have the benefit of another round where they might get slightly further out of your reach for the ones that scored particularly well. Lachie Neale, 157 in round one. You know, Tom Mitchell with a 119 will probably sit around the same. But you have these guys now who, before it was like, okay, I can look at this and corrective trade in those first couple rounds before the price rise. Now you have less time to do that.
Yeah, that's a good point. The Supercoach projections has Lachie Neale, for instance, going up to 684k over the next few weeks, because his break evens, you know, for him reasonably low, 94. So that's a good point, which we haven't touched on. If you had a super primo like Lachie Neale, who's going to play in Queensland for the next 4 games, can you get him in, and should you try to? Because we hadn't discussed the primos who did really well. Damo, is Lachie Neale someone that we should be targeting if you can have the luxury of sideways trading when teams are named next week?
He's someone who, if you have the cash, Dunkley to Neale, easy as that. He's someone that you really should have started with. I know it's easy to say that in hindsight, but I always felt that he was going to be the number one midfielder at the end of this season, and with the shortened season, and even with a lot of games on the Gold Coast now, that's might become even more of a reality, and there might be quite a berth between number 1 and number 2.
And by the way, while we're talking about it, this thought's just occurred to me. If you didn't start Brodie Grundy, there is no better time than get him in now, because his break-even's only 89, and he scored 179 in round 1. His price, look, it's predicted to go up above 750k, and it's not going to drop, really. He's pretty damn good. So if you did start Brodie Grundy, now's your chance. You've got 5 trades to work out how to rectify that. I don't mind breaking your entire team to get him in. Am I crazy in saying that, Clarky?
I'm literally clicking the buttons as you were saying it, because I'm realizing... So I was one of those crazy people who was like, you know what? Nick Nat, that's some good value there. He is elite now with the shortened season. So I started Gorn and Nick Nat over Grundy to save myself that, you know, sweet 5,000 or 8,000 or whatever the difference was. But now I'm looking at it, I'm like, I have no other option. If you don't have them now, you should be bringing them in. Use your 5 trades effectively, make your money, get him in.
Yeah, and so his upcoming games: Richmond averages 109, St Kilda averages 112, GWS 103, and Essendon he averages 95. So now's your chance to get him in community, and you don't really have another one until it's too late in the season, in my opinion. Just something I thought of then, because I was looking at it going, hey, he scored pretty well.
He did alright.
Thanks for joining me today, Damo, you beautiful human.
Not a problem, Lek. It was great to have Clarkey on for his debut.
It was. What a debut, by the way, Clarkey. Just come out, and it's going to... I think you're going to hold your spot. I think Patch is in some trouble.
You know, it's good to put the fire under some of these guys who've been in the team for a while. You know, just got to come in here and perform my best, bring in the rookie vibes.
It's been an amazing community, and I'm so excited. I'm so goddamn excited.